Hi, we're going to get this knife out of this box in a minute, but first, let me read a little blurb to you about Barry Wood. Barry Wood's interest in knives came about because of his love of the sea and sailing. Barry wanted to make a knife that was strong and could be opened with one hand. He was an engineer, and his engineering experience contributed to both his pattern designs and the designs and refinements of the interesting opening and closing mechanism that contributed to his notoriety and popularity. Because of his unique opening-closing mechanism, Barry's knives have been referred to by various names, such as Swinglock, swivel knife, rotating folder, Woodlock, and others. Barry began making knives in his garage workshop in Venice, California, and he began selling knives in 1967. 1967. Barry's interesting folding knives attracted the attention of Colt Firearms, who commissioned him to produce the Colt Tuckaway folder. Patterned after Barry's Mk.2, the Tuckaway remains the most unusual of Colt's knives. The Tuckaway was introduced in 1969, and production continued through 1978. Barry passed away in 2014. And something that I picked up along the way is that, that wasn't in that brief biography there, is that at some point Barry Wood started working with a man named Irie, I think Mk.2 maybe? Could that be an M-I there? Barry Wood's Mk.2. And I believe that was his son-in-law. And so then they worked together, and this is a Wood-Irie Classic Mk.2. And yeah, probably ready to see it be opened by now. So let's look at the instructions, shall we? That's all typical. Now what we're seeing in the images here is the Mk.1, but the mechanism is the same. And it's funny because we heard this thing, Barry Wood was looking for a way to open a knife one-handed, but they explain to you how to open it two-handed, and that is safer. But we're not going to bother with that, because the whole point is, well, it's not the whole point, but I did want to address myself to something that my friend Patrick Gerst mentioned in a video about his superlative piranha, which has a similar mechanism to this, which I'm still figuring it out, There are actually multiple ways to do this. And I think I should put some oil on it. So Patrick said he's playing with his knife, and I know we're not supposed to play with our knives, right? And I thought, well, that is possibly not cut and dried, that might be a contentious issue. And my take on it is that we should play with our knives. Because if I want to use this knife, let's say I want to actually carry it around with me in my pocket, and then an opportunity arises to be able to use it. Let's say I want to use it one-handed because I'm fending a bear with this hand, right? So now I need to open this with one hand, and what I don't want to do is fumble it, cut myself, or whatever, mess up. I want to smoothly and calmly get it open with one hand, so now I can somehow take on the bear, right? And you can see that there are various ways of doing this. Some of them are sketchy, and that was probably more of a sketchy one. But anyway, we'll look at the mechanism for a minute. So there's this button there. So I figure, for me at least, it's taking some getting used to. But I have just been fidgeting with it for a while. And I took it outside with me with the dogs, and it's a dark and misty night. And so in the dark, I just fidgeted with it in the dark. But that gets me, because when you're opening, you have to go forward, and it's the same movement in reverse too. And that's a slightly more awkward one. So now we can get that. So from here, I figure that if we come around this way, right, then you can kind of do this and kind of bally song. How advisable it is to click, clack, clack with this, I don't know. It all does feel very solid. And there is no side-to-side play whatsoever. Absolutely solid. And front to horizontal, there is a tiny little bit. Tiny. But on that note, I observed that I think it's different and more annoying when you have that on a slip joint or on a lock back where it's kind of sprung so that it'll go forward a bit and then the spring will push it. But I don't know really if it makes a difference in that regard, but I do think that it isn't optimal to have any blade play whatsoever, but a tiny bit of horizontal is not going to make a lot of difference, I think, even if you're doing some fine work there. Yeah, the hollow grind on this is pretty nice. It does look like maybe it got a little use at some point. I thought I was seeing something on the back. Oh, here, yeah. But maybe that could have just come from the makers like that. Just some kind of little blemish there on the bevel. Yeah, I haven't really cut with it. I just whittled a stick or something. Yeah, 440A blade, hollow grind, like this. Beautifully done. Not the most exciting kind of grind for me personally. I find this kind of buck style. It's great for certain tasks, but I don't find it as satisfying for woodwork and what have you. However, the design, the ergos, and the fidget factor and all that stuff is really cool. And I do kind of fancy carrying this knife around with me and becoming proficient. Maybe getting to a point where I can get it out and get it open quite smoothly without immediately fudging it. If you do it like that, it's kind of satisfying because it kind of rolls around in your hand and then you click it shut. But there is this moment where you're basically skating the back of the apex across your hand, and if you fudge it there, you'll slice yourself lightly, I reckon. So probably I think the best thing to do is maybe get it here to 45, then change scale, and then you're already. Oop. Yeah, you can do that way. I mean, it's not gonna. The blade isn't gonna hit, but no, that pinches. Right. So we want to get it to there, and then around that way. Feels like it's loosening up a bit. And I suspect that this may have been purchased by a collector back in the day, and maybe when they opened it according to the instructions, right? And so the whole thing is bound in pretty tight. Wasn't feeling like flippy and bally song like at all to start out with, but yeah, I guess maybe it'll like loosen up, and eventually you can be like tick 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 tick. Ooh. right about a 3.5 inch blade length. Cutting edge, shade over 3 3/4. You lose half of that on the board, more than half. We're up to about there now. Contact. I love it. I love the look, the ergonomics. It's got a nice balance, pretty handle heavy. But I'm coming to like that a bit more, actually. A bit more weight in general, and a bit more weight in the handle. Kind of like it. Nah. Keeping this one out. Thanks for watching.